he asked me sadly. Yeah, I just wish I could meet her face to face again and tell her how I really feel. Although I don't think I want to go through the pain of seeing her again. At least not right now, I admitted to my friend. I'll tell you what, Bobby. Do two things for me, he asked me, instantly changing his emotional mood to positive and optimistic. Get these videos for me. Tad asked me to pull out from the envelope the videotape from the night before, the videotape of Tony at the tennis club, and the videotape of Sue with Mr. Davis and Mr. Evans in her office. I gave him the videos and he told me to invite Mary to have lunch with me. I looked at him strangely and he immediately answered me in kind. I think it would be better if I look at them personally so as not to upset you all before our meeting at 14 White. I don't think watching this material will do you any good right now, and I don't want you to get angry before we even meet Bill Evans. I knew he was right and thanked him, telling Mary the good news. She told me to take her somewhere expensive if Ted would pay. I laughed, and we both left the building. Mary was a wonderful dinner companion, and she made me forget all my problems for the next hour. When we returned, I heard Tad yell as we walked through the office door. We walked in, and he was in a great mood, doing a celebratory dance at his table. This recording is great, Bobby. I do not believe in this, he told me. I got a funny and sad look on my face, and I think he finally understood why. Oh, Bobby, I'm really sorry. I didn't celebrate these videos. I know Sue really hurt you. I was just excited because of what I just found, he admitted to me. Bobby, come here. I need you to look at something for me. Ted asked me as I followed his instructions and stood right behind him so I could see over his shoulder. Did you watch the entire tape that Tony made at the tennis club with Sue? He asked me. No, I only looked at some of them. Last night I tried to get through all the footage without throwing up or going out and killing someone, I told him honestly. Well, I have a surprise for you. Just before Tony and Sue finish, they begin to gather a small crowd in the men's locker room, the tennis club locker room. I don't want to say it, but she let the other men who were watching the gangbang fuck her after Tony was done. I'm not telling you this to make you angry or sad, but because of this man right here. Tad told me this, pointing to the screen on his desk. The person he was pointing at was an older man wrapped in a towel. He had longer gray hair and a mustache like a walrus. He asked me if I recognized him. Tad put the video on play and I could see him throwing off the towel and showing off a very large man tool that any man would be proud of. The only problem was that he walked right up to my wife and fucked her. The next minute, she was surrounded by 5 more guys waiting for their turn to talk to Sue. Ted, I have no idea who this asshole is, but I assume you do? I answered him wisely. Bobby, this is for our meeting today at the tennis club at 16 Nasi, he told me. Tad was excited and then he told me why. I smiled when he told me his plan. Besides being my friend, Tad was a damn good lawyer. I was glad that he was on my side this time. We left his office to head downtown for our 2 hours p.m. meeting with Bill Evans. We took with us a portable DVD player, some photographs that we had printed before leaving, and some legal envelopes. We entered Sue's building and headed straight to Bill's office on the top floor. Sue's office was on the floor below. We waited in the reception area until we were invited into Mr. Evans's office. Just before I entered, I felt someone looking at me. I looked down the hallway and saw the woman disappear around the corner when she noticed me looking at her. Try to guess who it was, I told myself. I was just glad I didn't have to deal with her today. We both walked into Bill's office and it was furnished with expensive furniture. At each location on the wall, there was a plaque, award, or photograph of a famous person with Bill Evans. He had a nice office, and the first thought that came to my mind was whether he had Sue in that room. At this thought, I really began to dislike Mr. Evans more than ever. I introduced Tad and started doing all the talking. Hello, Mr. Evans. This is my friend Ted Worth, and he will be at the meeting you called today, I told Bill as we all shook hands. Mr. Thomas, Bob, I thought this was going to be a little meeting behind closed doors between you and me, Mr. Evans asked me. Well, I thought I'd take Tad with me. Whatever you say to me, you can say to him, I said. I didn't bring it up for discussion, so he accepted Tad's presence and started talking directly to me, ignoring Tad. This brought a smile to Tad's face. I knew what was coming, but I let Mr. Evans go first before we popped his balloon. Bob, can I call you Bob? Bill asked me. No problems at all. I actually thought it would be nice to have Jeff Davis at this meeting as well. I don't know if it's possible, but it applies to him too, I told Mr. Evans. He thought for a moment and pressed the intercom button. Julie, tell Jeff I need him in my office right now. Tell him to stop whatever he's doing and come here right now. Okay, Jeff will be here any minute. In the meantime, let me just say how sorry I am for all the trouble Jeff and Sue have caused in your life. I know last night must have been terrible, but if we work on this together, we might be able to help everyone involved, Bill said optimistically. What do you mean, Mr. Evans? I asked him, waiting for Jeff to arrive. I really like your wife, Sue, and... Bill said this, but was interrupted as Jeff walked right through the door. He stopped in his tracks and looked like he was about to turn around and leave, but Bill ordered him to sit down. He sat down reluctantly and didn't look at me at all. Bob, I just wanted to say that I really liked Sue, almost like a daughter. He began to speak when Tad interrupted him. Are you saying that you like incest too, Mr. Evans? Tad asked, completely taking him by surprise. I started laughing to myself because I knew what Tad's comment was about. What you said? Do I like incest? What the hell does this mean? He asked Tad with righteous indignation. Well, let me show you. As they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Ted told them, putting the DVD player on Bill's desk. These are stills from the video that you will see in just a minute. Tad handed them to Jeff, not Bill. Jeff's eyes became as big as saucers, and he slowly passed them straight to Bill. The photographs showed Bill and Jeff, both paired with my wife, and there was no doubt about who was in the picture or what they were doing. I even think Bill recognized his own boardroom table where he and Sue used to have sex. Jeff, are you going to tell me that you were stupid enough to record this on video and even give out copies? Bill asked, almost at a loss for words. It was clear that Jeff had no answer at the moment and was completely tongue-tied. Well, Mr. Evans, this is how it will happen. Oh, by the way, I'm Bobby's lawyer and also his friend. So let me tell you what we want and how we want you to handle it, Tad told the stunned audience. I enjoyed every minute of it. First, Sue will keep her job, period. Bobby senses that she will need a job, and she seems to get along very well with everyone here. He said this to Bill with a slight wink. Secondly, Mr. Davis is no longer welcome here, period. Sue stays, and this guy leaves, Tad said to Bill, pointing at the stunned Jeff. Thirdly, we want you to make us a monetary offer that does not insult our intelligence. We will only consider your first offer and respond yes or no within 5 business days. We plan to go to court before the end of 2 months, and maybe earlier if necessary. Before they could say anything, Tad pressed play and turned the screen around so Bill could see it. It showed both men possessively having my wife over and over again in their conference room. Jeff didn't need to watch since he was the one in charge of the video recording. Bill just watched with his mouth open. I could see the gears in his head working overtime. He thought about how to save his business, his reputation, his family life, and most importantly, his money. I knew something was going to happen soon. Jeff, when these gentlemen leave today, we will have a very serious conversation about your future employment here. I'll talk to my lawyer and see if we can work out a figure that makes you a little happy. You both understand that this could be very bad for business if this becomes known before my proposal is considered. Bill stated, thinking out loud. Don't worry, Mr. Evans. We will keep your secret until we see your serious proposal. However, I would not be in a rush to fire Mr. Davis right now. He may have a few extra copies of the videotape. He can use this as leverage if we don't do it. You and Mr. Davis can discuss this yourself. Oh, and by the way, you both could face prison time for having sex with an employee, which directly affects your employment and promotion. Tad told them as we both stood up to leave. Tad took back the DVD player and the pictures we had brought. We left as Bill and Jeff were about to have a little heart-to-heart. I went over to ask Tad something, but he told me to be quiet until we got outside. I didn't notice my wife standing around the corner trying to eavesdrop on our conversation, but he did. The last thing I heard was Mr. Evans shouting into Julie's intercom, "Get Sue Thomas here immediately." I smiled because I knew it would be a fun meeting. Bill would soon find out that I found his DVD in our house. When we got outside, I asked him why he gave Jeff a way out by telling him to use his own videotape against Bill. "Divide and conquer, as they always say," Ted told me. "It will be better if they do not act as a team, but everyone's for themselves. Thus, if Bill makes a playful offer to us, we will start playing against each other. I also know that Jeff and Bill have a family and go to church. Although you wouldn't know it from the videotapes they're filming, they don't want to rock the family boat right now," Tad told me wisely. As I left the building, I realized that this would now be the place where my wife cheated on me, rather than the proud place where my wife works. I felt sad about this thought, like many others in my head. Ted brought me back to reality. "Okay, let's have a beer before our next meeting at 16 Was at the tennis club. We could both use a drink right now, and I need to ask you something, but I'm not sure how to do it yet." Ted told me about this while we were driving across town towards the tennis club. We popped into a cute little bar restaurant next to the tennis club. Tad ordered 2 beers and started talking to me. "Bobby, I think Bill Evans will make an offer, but only for a little less than $1 million. I know his legal team from another firm, and they are very good. The main character is also a realist. I'll call him tomorrow and let him know that a bad, low-price offer won't be good for his client's business or family life. I'll offer them to do it for about $3 million, or just forget about it altogether," he told me. "Next, I need to know if the offer is not accepted, which may be, whether I can drag Susan through the mud. I won't be kind to her for anything in the world. I can't do anything other than what I know will win the case. It will be my unpleasant job as your legal representative if it comes to that. This can get ugly and very public. I will use every tool at my disposal to win our case. You may not like all the details that might become public about Sue, your marriage, and possibly your sex life. I will make her look like the fallen woman she has become. I don't know if you thought about this at all," Ted added at the last minute. "Yes, I really thought about it. I'm a bigger person than any of these people think I am. If this needs to be done, you have my blessing. But I'd like to go down the money offer route before we go crazy," I hinted to Tad. "Okay, first we'll see what Bill has to offer you. However, if it sucks, I will complete all the necessary paperwork on the same day. I will also use my newspaper contacts as well as my friends at 3 local news stations. They'd be happy to get a few samples of videotape or stills, even if they have to put blue bars in front of the juicy bits, as they say in sitcoms. Ted, you've always been there for me, and I trust your judgment. I just wish this whole mess never happened. It was more fun to be a clueless husband than to be publicly cuckolded by a cheating wife. You still have my permission to do whatever is ever necessary. After all, I didn't start this shit, but I'm going to end it soon," I told him with anger in my voice. "Okay, Bobby, no problem. Now let's discuss the material for our next meeting. This guy, Mr. Harry Rydell, is the owner of the Ace Tennis Club. This is the guy I pointed out in the video in my office," he told me. "He will say that adults will be adults and he will not be able to do anything for us. Even Tony's tennis coach can be fired just for show. Then he could hire him again next week. I checked and Tony is very popular there, especially with the ladies, if you know what I mean. He could hire him back to save face with the club members. But remember, Bobby, it's mostly men who pay the club dues, and women go too. Don't forget this fact because it will be important for your interaction with Mr. Rydell." He told me how things were. We arrived just in time, and you could tell Mr. Rydell and Tad didn't like each other. This was evident from the first time Rydell spoke. "Okay, Worth, you called the meeting, so let's finish. I want to get this over with as quickly as possible," Mr. Rydell told Thad without any kindness. "Mr. Rydell, this is Bob Thomas," he said, nodding in my direction, "and his wife is a member of your club. It has come to our attention that Tony Simba, your tennis instructor, was having an affair with Mr. Thomas's wife. We want to know what you plan to do about this," Tad finished. He waited for Rydell to speak, but even I knew that he would take everything upon himself and, in a few words, send Tad to hell. Look, what two adults do in the privacy of their own home in their free time is up to them. I'm not their mother, so stop wasting my time, Harry Rydell told us. As for you, Mr. Thomas, if you can't make your wife happy in the bedroom, don't come to me crying and blame me if she cuckolds your sad ass. There are many unhappy wives who go to the Ace Tennis Club. Some of them keep coming back because of the personal service my staff provides them, if you know what I mean. Harry said this, winking at me. I would have reached out and hit him, but Ted grabbed my wrist and whispered to me to keep my cool and follow his lead. You see, Harry, you are operating on the assumption that this happened outside the club and that it happened without the full knowledge and approval of the owners. It would be wrong of you to assume that, Harry, Tad told him, pulling out a DVD player and placing it on his desk. Ted pressed play and turned the screen towards Harry. This was a hint that Harry was throwing in the towel and starting to have my wife. It was clear that he did not like the look of the video recording. Thad began to speak, before Harry had a chance to think. Harry, you, with full knowledge of this and with the complicity of your work colleague, took advantage of the services of a paying member of your club. Mrs. Susan Thomas, a married woman, even received her dues from Mr. Thomas. Now he is a dissatisfied customer. Tad told the very quiet Mr. Rydell about this. When this comes out, all men, that is, men who pay dues, will want to know whether their wife is having sex here when they also pay the bills. I'll have to subpoena everyone who was in the locker room that day. I'm not sure that they, that is, those who are married, will not be too happy with you about this, Tad began to tell him in an almost fairy tale tone. I also almost forgot about the reasonable expectation of privacy, even when videotaping the locker room in the first place. Harry, when I'm done with you, your club will no longer be the beacon of community it once was, and I also think your bank coffers will be a little lighter in the near future, Ted added for greater persuasiveness. So, what we want is for you to make us a serious offer and call me back right away. If you do this in a timely manner, it can save you a lot of inconvenience and loss of money. Ted finally finished. We could see Harry Rydell considering his options. Ted, as always, you're a real asshole, but I can't argue with your logic. I'll call you tomorrow with my offer. If I pay, all the tapes will return to me and never see the light of day. I will fire Tony voluntarily. Now, if that's all you legal blackmailers came for, get the fuck out, Harry Rydell told us, as Ted took the DVD player with a smile and turned it off. Oh, by the way, say hi to Tito Martinez, Ted said to Harry, leaving the room. Go to hell, Worth. That was all Harry could say in response. Tad laughed all the way back to the parking lot. It was a lot of fun, so now we're waiting for suggestions, Tad told me as we went to his house for a delicious home-cooked meal. By the end of the week, Bill Evans had offered just under $2.7 million to keep Sue as his employee. Jeff Davis was fired after he foolishly gave Bill Evans all his videotapes and had nothing else on him. So Bill just fired him, and there wasn't much that poor old Jeff could do. I went after the two idiots who were with my wife the night I caught her with Jeff. They were two of Jeff's big clients. Well, they both didn't want any publicity either from a company standpoint or for themselves, so they each offered me $1 million to leave. Harry Rydell didn't want to offer anything and told us to sue him. We did that, and he lost $3 million when we were done with him. He had so many questions about who was fucking who at the club that he lost half of his club members and was forced to give up everyone else. I think he thought he could get away with it, but the judge didn't like the footage of the private locker rooms. He also didn't like it when people had other people's wives. I gave Sue a house and a car just like she wanted. Although I didn't have to pay her a penny in child support, I only saw her twice in court. I called her a slut both times when I said hello, and it made her cry. I always wondered why she was crying now and not before she started all this crap in my life. For being the worst time of my life, I got more money than I ever had. I was smart and took Ted's advice. It still hurts, and I carry it with me to this day. All the events of that terrible year that I have just described came to mind in the blink of an eye. I didn't even notice anyone talking to me until I woke up from my flashback nightmare and heard the restaurant manager ask if he could help. I wasn't sure how long I stood there, motionless, remembering the past. I shook my head to clear my thoughts and returned to the restaurant. Sorry, I was just thinking about a problem I had once. I saw the party I came to see, so thanks again. I told the manager about this when he gave me that strange look that people usually give to an elderly person who doesn't have everything at home. With a specific purpose, I walked straight to my ex-wife's table. I think the surprise hit her first. When I was last married to Susan, I was overweight and had long hair and a beard. I allowed myself to take it easy on my sore knee from an old baseball injury. That's what I told myself at the time, but I just got used to my life and my wife. Now I had my hair cut short, skinny from working out every other day, and my knee was fixed thanks to the money I got from Jeff and Bill's company. My suits were now expensive, and I always tried to look good in public. I decided to speak first. "You look great today, slut. I almost forgot how good you looked," I said, trying to get her to talk. I still knew how to push her buttons, and I did it on purpose. "My name is Susan, Bobby. Why don't you call me by my name?" She answered me the same in anger. "Hey, I didn't tell you your name, slut. You know who did. I just think it's appropriate. I told you 3 years ago that you broke my heart, and I will always refer to you by that name." I told her about this when the guy next to her began to protest and get up from his seat. Sue pushed him back and told him not to make a scene. She cried a little and her makeup ran. Her boyfriend said, "Go powder your nose, Sue, and put your pretty face in order. I'll take care of this asshole for you." And with these words, she stood up, looked into my eyes, and I looked back at her. With just one glance, I must have shown all the pain I had been carrying within me for the past 3 years. She cried again, even harder. I was surprised that she still had any feelings for me at all, or maybe she still felt guilty. I think it was a mixture of both. "I expect you to be gone when I get back," she told me with tears streaming down her face. I just now noticed the very large engagement ring on her ring finger as she wiped her eyes with her hand and walked into the ladies' room. "I take it you are Bob Thomas, Sue's ex-husband?" he asked me with disgust in his voice. "Yes, and you must be the slut's new wish come true." I told him about it when I saw the anger appear on his face. "I'm Sue's CFO, and if I were you, I'd stop calling her that." He tried to say it bravely, but I could tell he really didn't want to make a scene. "I did this to talk to you alone. I have 3 questions for you, and I will disappear from your life forever." I told him about it, and it brought a questioning expression on his face. "I was in your shoes once, and I just didn't want anyone else to suffer my fate again. I guess the slut told you I was a shitty husband, beat her or neglected her, or was a skirt chaser." I asked him about it and saw that this was exactly what she told him. "Well, I'm not here to defend my reputation to you. Honestly, I don't think anything good would come of it. I just wanted to know first if Sarah still hosts her Avon parties at her house on Tuesdays and Thursdays." I asked him. Sue helps Sarah sell decorations at her parties on Mondays and Wednesdays. "It shows how much you remember." He snapped back. "Fine. Does she still take tennis lessons on Saturdays?" I asked quickly. "Sue plays ball with a racket on Sundays. Boy, you have a shitty memory from being married to her for so long," he said with triumph in his voice. "Fine. Last question. Have you ever looked under the bottom drawer of the dresser in your living room?" I quickly asked. "No." "Why on earth should I do this?" he objected. "The 3 questions I asked you are why we are no longer together. I still have all the materials left over from the divorce in my office. Legal shit, emails from Sarah and the slut, and hours of videotapes. I've always carried this with me for the past 3 years, so I thought you should have it." I said this, taking out a very old and folded piece of paper from my wallet. This is what the slut wrote to Sarah when she asked about how to get rid of me before I discovered that the slut was cheating on me. I didn't know her at all after I read that letter, and I probably still don't. "But it's all about you," I said, handing him the paper. However, I knew Sue very well and knew that she was a person of compulsive habits. She always did the same thing, the same way every time. Sometimes it drives me crazy. I also had the feeling that just because she had a new man, she would still do what she always did. He seemed hesitant to take the piece of paper, but I think curiosity got the better of him. He reached over and opened the email. I've carried it with me for the past 3 years, and from time to time, I've reread it and tried to improve my life so that no woman would ever write that about me again. Of all the videotapes and other things I learned about, this email hit home the most. I think that's why I still carried it with me. This is the same email that I described earlier in my story. Peter read the letter slowly and placed it on the table. He pulled out a pen, wrote a note on it very quickly, and to my surprise, left the restaurant. No looking back, no thanking me, nothing. He had a completely stone face. I leaned over and looked at what he wrote in her old email. I'll go back to the house in a minute. Please stay here and I will call you back in 15 minutes. Please wait here for me. For some strange reason, I need to look under the bottom drawer of my living room dresser. Be right back. Peter. I knew he had seen the light even if he didn't like it. Something told me that I was too close to the mark on all 3 issues. The email was the last straw, and I think he needed to see for himself. I left a note before setting Sue's table and left. There was no way I was going to sit in this restaurant with anyone tonight. I returned to the foyer and called my client. They said they were late anyway and wouldn't mind rescheduling the meeting. Just before I left, I took one more look at the table. Sue returned to the table and looked around for Peter. She sat down and looked at her old email and Peter's note below. Her face turned white as a ghost as she recognized her old email and what Peter had written to her. The last time I saw my wife, she was crying so hard that the entire restaurant was looking at her. I really felt sorry for her, but at the same time I didn't care. That was the last time I saw her again. I still wonder if Peter found something under the dresser drawer. Sue's crying told me he could do it. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.